Here, you can exercise your rights to freedom every day without leaving your home. We don't just say, we do. It's the Stain City way.
Hello and welcome to Real Talk with me, Anele, right here on SABC3. The stage is yours. Family. They're the support system who get us through the challenging times in our lives. The loved ones we create lasting memories with over holidays, and often the people who can take us from 0 to 100 real quick in any argument. For all that they're worth, family is a blessing to have. Sadly, not everyone born into the world gets to experience that firsthand. For a lot of young children, they face the heartbreaking and soul-destroying prospect of being abandoned. This is where adoption can turn things around. Today, we celebrate World Adoption Day, whereby ambassadors from all over the world organize events to raise awareness and support of the families brought together by the power and the beauty of adoption. My guest today will take us through their individual journeys of how adoption has impacted their lives. To begin with, we'll be gaining a better understanding of the process of adoption with the help of adoption social worker Margaret Ntantla, who is with us from the ABBA Specialist Adoption and Social Services, and she's been here very early. So thank you for coming early and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So the first thing I want to know, Margaret, is people, when we think adoption, immediately, the assumption is that adoption is a practice that is done by couples or anyone actually who cannot conceive children. What are the different reasons that people will adopt a child?
Okay, Anele, people, they adopt, obviously, for different reasons. And not having children of your own is one of the reasons why people are adopting. Mm-hmm. But like I'm saying, there's various reasons to that. It's not only people that are having infertility in their relationships or in their marriages that that are adopting. There are other people who are adopting because of the love of the children, people that are just generally love children, and they're adopting because of that. And again, there's also people that are adopting because of they want to grow their families. So even people that are having children of their own, they still also, look at adoption as a way of growing their families.
Can you run us through the different types of adoptions?
Yes, of course. There are different types of adoptions. There is non-disclosed adoptions.
Which means what?
Which means that the identifying details of the biological parents are not known to the applicants. They will never be known. They would know. Obviously, it depends. It really depends on the the complexities of the adoption.
So, for instance, if I then am giving up my child for adoption, could the details be known to you guys as social services?
Yes.
So that when my child turns 18 and decides, actually, I understand that this is my adoptive family, but I'd like to at least meet my mother.
Yes.
That's something that is always will be available.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And that is then deemed a closed adoption.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, and undisclosed.
Non-disclosed
because
adoption.
it's not it's closed, so obviously no information is being known.
Okay, and open adoption?
We've got an open adoption where obviously the details are known, so the applicants will know whose child they are adopting. So, and a lot of times they parties can choose to enter into a post-adoption agreement where there will even be contact, etc. So that is very open. I know that Anele is adopting my child, so my child has been,
So I get to vet you actually and get to see if you are the person I want to give my child to.
Yes, yeah.
In the NDA, listen to me, NDA, wow, Anele, clearly I harbor secrets. In the non-disclosed adoption, do I get to know who my child is going to?
Not always.
Okay.
Not always, because it's non-disclosed, like I'm saying. But there's a lot of things that are being taken into account. So your wishes as a biological parent, you kind of like you'll be asked, what are your wishes in what kind of a family would you like to see your child going into? Then you also kind of like get preferences to say, I would like a couple, or it doesn't matter as long as my child,
Could
is
be a
in
single parent.
Yes, so those are your wishes that we also look into. It's ideal ideal, you know, but it's not always the reality because it also depends on the parents that are on the system.
So who can adopt? Who's eligible to adopt?
You know, the Section 231 of the Children's Act is very open. It, you know, it makes adoption accessible to most people. So according to the Act, you need to be more than the age of 18 years. However, the Act doesn't say up to what age you need to, you know, you need to be. And again, it says that you must be having a clear criminal record. You must be fit and proper, and again, your name must not be appearing on the Child Protection Register.
Oh, yes. Because, I mean, you know, we're in a terrible time with
course.
Violence with women and children, so you have to be aware
absolutely.
of who this child is going to, okay?
Yeah. So, in other words, then, we don't discriminate, you know, when it comes to applications because the Act is very open. However, we, you know, we select and screen parents that are, you know, having the child's best interest principle in the mind. You know,
how long is the process taking?
Adoption process. You know, Anele, it can take. I want to explain to you, you know, why it's taking this much. So the screening process itself, it can take anything up to, you know, between 3 to 4 months, even up to 6 months. You know, in some cases. And again, because of the investigation of the adoptability of children, that can take up to 8 months. Also, depending on the complexity of these children. You know, with regards to their medical needs, you know, the child's needs, and all those kind of things. So we're looking at up to, you know, from after placement, when the child has been placed in the family, the child would then be placed in the family where matching happens. And then after that, up to the noting of the adoption with the Department of Home Affairs, we're talking about, you know, a year plus.
That's good numbers for me because you're literally placing a life in another life. So you want to be able to vet. There's a voice not coming through for you, Margaret. Let's state.
I would like to know if there's counseling for people who want to adopt first. Because I feel like before you make any decision about adopting, you need to know what you're getting yourself into. So I would like to know if they offer counseling for some of the parents who want to adopt kids, because we don't want a situation whereby they resent the kids when they adopt.
All right, yes. Anele, there is counseling that forms part of the screening process of adoptive parents. So we look at different areas. That's why we call it a screening, to see if what is it that you still need, you know, to deal with in your life, you know, because as much as there, you know, there are reasons why people can adopt, there's also wrong reasons why people, you know, want to adopt. So
fashionable.
Yes, exactly. You know, I want a playmate for my child, for example. So
psychologically, I may have miscarried and I harbor, you know, some emptiness, so I'm using a child to fill up that gap, exactly. And that's why the counseling is important.
Yeah, so it's very important.
So before we say goodbye, and you've been really informative, after the child, let's say 1 year, papers are signed, legally it's there, do you do checkups like monthly, like every 6 months, every year, and when do the checkups stop? Because I mean, if now the child's been mine for 12 years, I think we're cool.
Listen, Anele, obviously, before we place the child in care, we would have done the screening process. So before we can even place the child with you, we know that Anele is able, you know, is willing, she's fit and proper. So obviously there's no doubts about that. Your credit record will be clean and everything. So we'll not be having, you know, consent. So once we place the child, there is a period, about a 2-year period that we call aftercare, you know, services, where we kind of like monitor how is it going with the child, is, you know, is everything going well?
At the park,
yes, you know, but it's not necessarily, it's not like we're checking you out because we've done our process thoroughly before we know. But however, if I want, you know, if I'm in the area where you're staying, I will call and say, Anele, are you home? I'm in the area, can I pass by? You know, and again, there is in a form of documents, for example, where you will be sending us photos to say, this was the child's first birthday, you know, this is us on holiday. So we kind of like know what's happening out there with the child.
Oh, I like that. There's a whole lot of paperwork, but it's matched with a whole lot of emotion.
Yes.
Margaret, you persist. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you to my guest, Margaret Nhlanhla, who works as an adoption social worker with ABBA Specialist in Adoption Services. Now, if you'd like to share your thoughts on today's show, our WhatsApp number is up and waiting for you to use it. Please remember, we can only accept voice notes and try to keep them around to 20 seconds, so we'll play them and answer any questions that you may have. We'll be back after the break. And welcome back to Real Talk, where today we're getting some insights into the process of adoption, as well as how abandoned children's lives are improved by the love of adoptive parents as part of World Adoption Day. They say that pregnancy is meant to be an enjoyable experience, but for a lot of people, that joy is overshadowed by the harsh realities of not being able to afford another mouth to feed. Khomutso Mgiba is a 28-year-old accounting student and a single mother of a 10-year-old who made a tough call to put her second child's well-being above her own by giving her up for adoption so she could benefit from an upbringing she wasn't able to provide for her. Please help us in welcoming Khomutso Mgiba to the show. Welcome, Khomutso.
Thank you, Anele.
I saw they were helping you rap you, and I was like,
Yes.
guys, the head rap is the riskiest thing. Eh?
Yeah.
It will show you flames in the middle of life. So you have a 10-year-old already.
Yes.
When you had that child, were you hesitant about having your firstborn?
When I was having the second or the first?
The first one.
The first, I felt ready, but emotionally I was not clearly ready. You understand? So having the second one was like facing that reality again. Because I felt like I'm telling myself lies, where else emotionally I'm not ready. Physically I might be, but the expectations of people that they expect us to be mothers just because we are pregnant, emotionally and psychologically it means that we are ready. You see, so yeah, I was not.
So you'd say your first child taught you a lot about
Yes.
what you are capable of doing
Yes.
and what you're not capable of doing. Ne?
Yeah.
So when you fell pregnant for the second time, was there, I mean, like, because you were in a relationship, you know,
Yes.
was there a moment of, oh, this is good? And then only when your partner was like not excited about it, did it also dawn on you the darkness of what was happening?
You know, with our imagination, I expected something different. I expected the guy to be ready. We are matured, we know what we want.
Yeah.
You know, we want to plan families and move on with life. But I was excited with the second one, very excited to be a mother. But emotionally, I wanted someone to support me. Like, as in psychologically, I felt like my state of mind is not where it's supposed to be. So when he said to me, you know what, I'm not ready for a third child, supposedly, to him.
Okay.
Then, yeah, my world fell apart. I felt like by the second child, you must be married. That's
Yeah.
how they expect us to be our parents. You must be married, have a job, have your own house, and achieved something. But by then, it was different.
So it would have been his third child, but
Yes.
the first one with you.
Yes, the first one with me.
So your firstborn is not his child.
Yes, it knows.
Okay,
it's
so
not
then he
his.
tells you that you must terminate the pregnancy.
Yeah, and the process was like, he first gave me the 1,000 rand. I took the 1,000 rand and went shopping. Yeah, I did that.
Okay.
And told lies that I terminated the pregnancy. But soon after, he discovered that I didn't terminate the pregnancy.
How did you discover?
He noticed that the belly was growing because we stayed in together. Yeah, then that's when he started asking questions. I started explaining. Then he took out 20,000 rand because with my first pregnancy, I had a previous C-section.
Yeah.
So the doctors just said, you know, you can't have abortion
It's
because
too late.
even if it's too early, you can't have it. You will have internal bleeding.
Okay.
So even if I try and hospitalize you, but it's not going to be all right afterwards. So yeah, we went to several doctors. Then afterwards, we went to a specialist. That's when realities kicked in that, you know, you can't terminate the pregnancy, even though you love the child. But I have this imagination of raising my kids with a family, not alone.
Were you struggling to raise the first child?
Yes, I was struggling to
Okay.
raise the first one.
So when do you decide on adoption?
Months went by, the pregnancy is growing. He was in military, so he deployed. After he deployed, I was alone. Reality kicked in. Then I had to make a decision. Decision is not about whether it's right or wrong. It's about intention, making that decision. So I had to figure out what is right and what is wrong in my own situation, in my own world. So facing the situation, it was like I didn't have a choice. Like if I keep the baby financially,
You're gonna drown.
because worst part, I was in college. So my mother raised me as a single parent. So the disappointment of going home
With another
with
child.
another child.
Did your mom know you were pregnant for the second time around?
She didn't know anything.
Has she ever known?
Yes, she knows.
Was she part of the adoption process?
No, she was not. The story is different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When she
it's
found
very
out you gave the child up for adoption, was she happy with you?
Yo, she screamed. Like, the way I thought of it, I've never had a moral support from my family, even while growing up. But I decided to keep it a secret and be strong because I already knew their reaction.
The thing with, with black families, for instance, long ago I spoke about adoption. I was like, I think I'll have 2 kids and then I'll adopt the 3rd one. And a family member said, but you've got so many so many children in the family who are like living in the rural areas that you could take. Why would you go and take a stranger from somewhere else? So now this is twofold for me. For you, not going to your family, did you not think that like an aunt or somebody else could take the child and raise them as their own, or did you not want that?
I'm from a small family, but we do have relatives. But as you know, these days, we don't connect like older days. So I knew that my family they are struggling financially, So yeah, I came to a suggestion that, you know what, I can't get a better life for her now, but soon I'll get a better life for her. But at the meantime, what am I doing for her life to change? So my family was like, even though we don't agree with what you did, but it's a wise decision. It has moral, it has love within it, you see. Because it's not like I took the baby and threw the baby away. Because the night before, I was staying at the house where it's a place of safety and an adoption home. Because they couldn't find a home for me to stay in. So I got to see how they are raising the children, the screening process and everything. So that's when everything became easier. I remember one night they bought a child like out of the blue. It was very dangerous because the child was malnutritioned. The mother left the child there. So they told me, this decision that you're making it out of your heart. That's why it's hard to let go.
Yeah.
Because it was the hardest thing. You feel like, it's like you're grieving, but you're not.
Yeah, because you can't afford this life for this person, and somebody else can, but it's still your child.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you have fears also.
So how long ago was this?
It was 5 years ago. Today she's turning 5.
Do you know where she is?
Yes, she's in Europe, in Denmark.
Okay. And do you ever plan to contact the parents? And
with my adoption, I get photos and letters. So I prefer keeping it private for her now because she's still young.
Okay.
You understand? So with me, I plan on maybe 18 years.
Okay.
I'll go look for her. Because I even met the adoptive parents.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your child, the 10-year-old, is it a boy or girl?
A girl.
Does she know that she's got a younger sister?
Yes, she even met her.
Okay.
Yeah, we met the adoptive parents together.
Oh, okay. So like it's a very open, fluid, like two-way street, you call it.
Because I don't keep quiet about it.
And you've never regretted it?
I don't even regret it. Unlike keeping a child, where else I know, there are parents who harm their children when they are stressed and they do everything. Just 'cause that's a cry for help.
Yeah.
And people don't notice that in every human being. Because we put on our makeup and walk out and smile.
So I don't like to say, so if because we don't live in if worlds, but say you financially right and you're studying accounting, you become a CA, and you have another child that you keep. Are you not scared what the one in Denmark is going to ask you one day about, okay, so they were good enough to stay, but I wasn't?
Reality kicks in, ne? That fear. Okay. Like, I even fear to have other children because I'm thinking of her emotionally.
Yes.
I'm trying to put myself in her shoes. But for now, I think I don't want children for now. I don't think I'm ready. Maybe adopting another child, because I'm not feeling any void, you understand, but I'm trying to make her understand my situation. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. You've opened my world. Literally, I live in this house and you just opened another room that I never knew was there. Thank you so much. I
Adoption
hope you've
will
done
be-
the same for our viewers. So you just heard from Khomutswa Mkiba. This is the extent of the sacrifices that some parents are prepared to go to in ensuring the best for their child where they feel they will not be able to provide. Thank you so much, Khomutswa, for sharing a story with us. Stay with us. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Real Talk with me, Anele. Adoption is described by many as one of the most selfless acts that a person is capable of, as they open their hearts to provide a safe and nurturing environment for someone else's child. Well, selfless is exactly the right word to describe my next guest, a law studies graduate who went on to study theology. Sihle Moy is the executive director of a non-governmental organization called Rays of Hope. He's part of a team of dedicated individuals who provide mentoring for young leaders based in marginalized communities such as townships. It was through the work he's done over the years of leading a church in Soweto that he made a home for his sons Jericho and Judah, who he adopted with his wife of 7 years. We welcome Sihle to Real Talk.
Thank you, Anele. It's good to be here.
It's like you've got a halo.
That's right.
We've got an angel here. Okay, talk to me about Rays of Hope.
Rays of Hope is an Alex-based NGO.
Yeah.
And we've been partnering with Alex for the last 26 years. So we've been around for a while. And we focus on 3 areas, orphaned and vulnerable children, education, and work readiness.
So you always did that? You were with Rays of Hope before then you adopted your children?
No. So the Rays of Hope thing is new, but
Okay.
community work, children has always been a part of my life.
And the mentoring.
And the mentoring. Yeah.
And where did you meet your wife?
We met at our church in Soweto.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I understand that both of you separately had always wanted to adopt children.
That's right.
How quick do you get to that conversation when you meet someone? Is it like after year 1 of dating? Is it when you get married? Like, when are we discussing that, you know what, hey, I'd like to adopt?
I think that we discussed it quite early. I think we had some marriage counseling and people helped us to raise the big issues.
Okay.
And so we were able to think, okay, how many children are we going to have? You know, what will that look like? And so it was quite early on in the process, I think with the help of people who were mentoring us at that time.
All right, and then you, because I mean, did you ever think that you want to have children of your own, or did you always know that the children that you have are going to be adopted?
So for both of us, we thought that we would have our natural children first, and then we would adopt after that.
Okay.
And so we were disrupted by meeting this amazing baby. Yes.
Yeah. Where did you meet Jericho?
So we met Jericho at an abandoned babies home in Pretoria.
Where you were doing your work?
So we were volunteering, my wife was volunteering, and we were just recently exposed to the whole issue of orphaned and vulnerable children. And so we were looking for opportunities to serve in different places.
Okay.
And so and that's how we met him in Pretoria.
So now take me back to this day, right? Do you guys see him at the same time and look at each other and you're like, or do you first interact with Jericho and then she does at a later stage? How does it work? Because it's not like you both touched him and then you're like, it's happening. I put me where you were.
Well, it was very interesting, as you can imagine, as a man. So she had been volunteering at this place, and for me as a man, I just see babies there, and you know, I'm not really bonding with any of them. Oh, that's nice, that's nice, that's nice. And but what she would often say to me, that boy, wherever you are walking in the room, that's where his eyes go, and they follow you. And I thought, yeah, sure, you know, I'm sure it's that way. But I think, and then the baby's home needed a break during the holidays, so the people that worked there. And so we chose to take Jericho for a weekend and just to get to know him. And I did notice that he kind of follows me around, and so that's when the thinking began. But I think my wife was probably ahead of me on that.
As always, it's what we do as women. We stay ahead.
That's right.
Was his name always Jericho?
No, that was not his name.
Oh, okay. So when you adopt him, then you then give him your name.
Yes, because it's, you know, it is as though they are born to you. You know, when they're adopted, and so the name, everything, the last name changes, and so we felt that we needed to give him the name that describes what we see in him and his journey.
And then Judah
Yes.
comes along,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that first meeting.
We met Judah through a lady who later became part of our church. And Judah was really a 2-year-old in a body of a 6-month-old baby. He was so malnourished. He was just underdeveloped, and he was starving and very sick. And so we came along this lady that we met in a mall and invited to church for a long time. And we were hoping that he was going to recover, but he wasn't recovering. And the doctors were saying that actually they don't think he will last very long. That's how much he was struggling.
And how old is he now?
Judah now is 7.
So he came, I mean, the doctors, thank you for the education, but they were wrong.
They said so many things. They said they didn't believe that he would live very long. They said that he would never talk. They said that he would never walk or even crawl. They said that he was maybe even brain damaged. And if you see him today, he's just amazing. He's full of life. At preschool, he won the Smile of the Year. And he's been a joy of our lives. And just to see him grow and overcome all of these odds has been the journey of our lives.
So surely then you and your wife just provide a home full of love, and then, you know, what doesn't grow from love?
It's true.
Do you know what I mean?
think life makes a difference, and we prayed and we sought help wherever we could, and it just paid off in amazing ways.
Yeah, your house must feel like a retreat. Like your spirit is so calming. There's a WhatsApp voice note for you. Let's check out what they're saying.
Hi, Anele. I'd like to find out if it were to happen that the biological parents of the child that you've adopted want their child back. What does the law say about that? Do they get their children back, or how does it work? Thank you.
Because I would assume that on top of the process of like the paperwork and the counseling and, you know, the vetting and all of that, there is a very big legality to the situation. So do you get walked through the legal side of it, which is the administrative side of it?
Yes, you do. You do. I think the social workers do a good job of helping you understand what it means. And I just remember the day when the magistrate said, "It is as though he is born to you, and this adoption is irreversible."
Okay.
And it became quite clear that there's no out.
Yeah, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. So if someone's watching now and they're thinking of adoption, let's do light and shade. Tell us the beauty of it, and then tell us the dark side of it, if there is for you, because from where I'm standing, like, there's nothing.
Well, I think the beauty of it, I had to wrestle a lot with what it means for me as a black man, you know, to adopt, and for some of the things that you've said, that it's not very common, and there are questions about the origin of the child, and what would it be like to have a firstborn, you know, being adopted, and all of those things. And I think most importantly, it was difficult for me. I didn't know, would I really love him, you know, as I would love a natural one. And I think at the beginning, you know, those fears were there, and we knew that it was the right thing. I knew that it was the right thing to adopt him, and yet, you know, we were, you know, I was kind of checking him out and seeing, you know, how is this going to go? But I'm telling you, after a few months, it was just, I cannot imagine loving someone more. And it's been a joy, and because it's been adoption, I feel like the love is richer, and the journey is deeper for those reasons. And I think for anyone who wants to adopt, I think it's the most rewarding thing that one can do.
Will you adopt again? Will you have a natural one?
That's the plan, to have a natural one and to adopt more.
Oh, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Say what to Jericho and Judah. Say, hey, what up, what up? We say goodbye to our guest, Sihle Moy, who is the executive director of Rays of Hope, based in Alexandra Township. After the break, we're going into a world that a lot of us observe and often have a lot to say about it, but have very little experience in it. What it's like growing up in an interracial and intercultural family. We'll find out next. And welcome back here with Real Talk. Because of the racial demographics in South Africa, the majority of children available for adoption are black. And as such, interracial families have been on the rise. For a lot of these families, the ability to provide a loving home for these children far outweighs the issue of color lines. Unfortunately, living in a country with a history like ours means that the race does matter to the outside world. I'm joined now by Tholakele Antamu, a 28-year-old singer and poet who's been accepted to study psychology at a London-based university. Tholakele was adopted by her white parents in 1989 as a child.
Yes.
So you didn't know your surname. You knew your name was Lindiwe.
Yes.
But no surname.
Well, no. So what happened was in the hospital,
yes,
I was Lindiwe Power.
Okay. Ooh,
okay. Which my doctor gave me that name.
Oh.
Then my mother, who was working as a physio and then also kind of helping out as a doctor, decided this child needs to be my child. Okay. And so my mom and dad decided Tholakele Antamu Catherine van Spek Halbert.
Okay.
Yeah.
We have to go through, we're going to go through these names. Tholakele Antamu Catherine van Spek Halbert.
Yes.
Okay, Tholakele, your name.
Yes.
Antamu?
Antamu is power in Tsonga.
Okay.
Yeah.
Catherine,
I'm not sure how that happened or why.
Like at the dinner table, you never been like, guys, really?
No.
Catherine?
Yeah. No.
Okay. Van Spek Halbert.
Van Spek, mom.
Okay.
Halbert, dad.
All right. So you don't ever run out of space on forms then?
Always, Anele, always. Every day. There's no sticker big enough for me. There's no sticker.
Yeah, so what was it like growing up in Cape Town, as a black child to white parents? I'm still trying to figure out what it's like. Cape Town is very white. Yeah.
Very, very white. And Cape Town is as liberal as we think we are.
Yeah.
We are very traditional. And this idea of what family looks like and what family, practices, how family moves through space is very stuck and very traditional. So growing up with white parents who were not wealthy, at a time where black and white was still very, good and bad.
Yeah.
It was tough. It was tough.
Did you ever have to hear your parents explaining your existence in their lives?
Yeah, well, I mean, often my parents had to explain, this is my daughter, she's adopted, or these are my daughters, they're adopted.
Yeah.
But also, after a while, I mean, my parents are very ballsy. So after a while, they just decided, listen, this is our family, you're an absolute stranger.
Why are we explaining ourselves
to
you?
No time.
And so were they also teaching you to have a thick skin?
Yeah.
Because, you go to school and Van Spek Halbert.
Yes. And then also announcing on the big speaker, and now this black child stands up to go and receive whatever. Yeah, it's tough.
It's a rough one.
It's tough.
Okay, so there's certain things that you from the way to take care of our hair to the fact that we need a little bit more moisturizer, otherwise we look ashy. So is there ever a time where you had to sit your parents down and be like, okay guys, listen, me black, me need this?
Luckily, no. I mean, my parents are pretty amazing like that. They're very multicultural, and I don't know how to explain. Like, the only way that I can explain, I suppose, in a very silly way, is that my parents aren't actually like stereotypically white, whatever that means.
They're just worldly.
They're very conscious. They're very awake. They are very able to take on whatever they need to be able to, create a nice, healthy home.
Okay.
So yeah, my sister and I never had ashy skin. We never had that like knotting situation. They were always Afro
Half
combs.
legs,
Yeah,
half
no.
growth.
They were always Afro combs. There was always amafuta in our house.
Okay.
Like, yeah.
Take me back to a memory where you were made to feel like, oh, okay, I am different, I am adopted, and not by them, because clearly but just like someone else.
Yeah. So I think the scariest moment for me, I was 12, and we had this kind of practice with me and my dad, and we went to go and get my hair braided.
Yeah.
And so we were at the salon in Mowbray, and the woman, the woman was doing my hair, and she said to me, "Oh, is this your daddy?" And I was 12, so I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah.
And then she said, "Oh, well, he must pay for everything for you. You're so lucky." And then I realized that she thought that this was my sugar daddy, and that I was sleeping with this man, and he was paying me to sleep with him.
And Cape Town's got that whole white man.
Yeah. So that was really sad, and that was something that stuck with me forever. And just realizing that people were seeing stuff that wasn't there. Thank you. Yeah, I get hot.
People were seeing stuff.
People were seeing stuff that wasn't there, and that was very confusing for me. Yeah.
And earlier you said something. You said. You were talking about your parents, and then you said, and my parents weren't rich. Do you feel like there is a little bit more acceptance when the adoptive parents are rich? Like if Madonna comes, it's like, oh look, I want an African child. Like, do you feel like there's more acceptance there, whereas if it's just like a normal run-of-the-mill white family who just love their child, that there's like a bit of uphill?
So I think what happens is that societies come to understand adoption through wealth. And so culturally, people think, okay, so here's this black person, they've been adopted, obviously they've got all of these things, they've got this education, they've got this da-da-da-da-da. So now this black person is better than the other black people, And so it was very strange for me to be like one of the poorest kids at my private school. I was only at the school because my mom was a teacher. We couldn't afford to be there. And so I was always in these spaces where my parents were white, like everyone else's parents, but I was black, and my parents weren't as rich as everyone else's parents. So it was a very weird dynamic. And my sister and I could always get on a lot better with people in our economic bracket, and that often was black and colored people.
But did you never find that you weren't black enough for blacks, but not white enough for whites?
Every day, and still.
And still
like
today?
I'm learning. I'm still learning how to be the skin and how to practice the skin and practice this body. I'm still learning it.
Would you say it's an integral part of your poetry and your music?
Definitely, it's a part of everything.
Yeah.
It's a part. I mean, it's beautiful and terrifying and heartbreaking and wonderful, and so it definitely brings out emotion and words and colors and shapes, and
And your sister's also adopted?
She is.
Is she older or younger than you?
She's younger.
So she came after you, and do your parents have natural children?
No.
So
no.
This is it.
We are the natural children.
You are the natural children. You are the ones that...
Yes.
So for you, adoption is something you would do?
Definitely, like 100%. I've already, my partner of 5 years, we've already had that conversation.
Is it?
It's happening, like at least 15.
Okay, so at least 15 kids.
Yeah. No, I'm joking.
You
like
want
7,
a choir,
7.
don't you? Maybe you like starting the Antamu 15. I never know these things. Listen, good luck with your music career. Good luck with your poetry. We hope to see you on stages across the world. And thank you for coming to share your story with us.
Thank you for making me sweat.
Girl, it's what we do here. We sweat. A big thank you to my guest, Tolakele Antamu, for sharing her experience. There's no argument. It couldn't have been the easiest thing in the world growing up as a black kid in a white community in the 90s in Cape Town. But now that we're in 2017, how much has changed growing up in an interracial family? After the break, we get to hear from a white adoptive mother raising her black daughter. We'll be right back. So it's been a real talk here on SABC3. The stage is yours as we get ready to wrap up our conversation on adoption in honor of World Adoption Day. For Robin Wilson Foster, having her 5-year-old daughter Asha become a member of her family led to a passion that has seen her dedicate her life to child protection advocacy. She has conducted extensive research and written numerous articles for publications such as the Daily Maverick, outlining some of the biggest socioeconomic challenges leading to countless numbers of children being left abandoned and in need of a home. She joins us now. Robin, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me, Anele.
Okay, so let's talk about the journey of Asha becoming yours, and then we'll get into how you became, a child advocate, right?
Okay.
Like I was asking Sihle, paint the moment when it happened.
So bizarrely, I named my children when I was in my late teens, but kind of in anticipation of having them one day, as one does when you're a teenager.
Yeah.
And I always knew I wanted to have a son called Luke and a daughter called Asha. But when I married my husband, I knew that we would struggle with fertility because he'd had a vasectomy during his first marriage. And it was kind of a question of would I give up on my dream to have children? So we initially pursued IVF, which is ghastly. It's a very difficult process to go through. But we were very fortunate. We, on our first attempt, miraculously had one embryo, and that produced my son, who's called Luke, and he's now 10. And then we went back and tried again, and we had disaster after disaster. It was a soul-destroying process. And in the process of trying to get through not having the little girl that I had wanted since I was a teenager, I started grieving her. I put together a memory box. And as my last act of grief, I went and found out what her name meant, because I'd already called her Asha. And I discovered that her name meant hope in Sanskrit, and life in Swahili, and blessed in Hebrew. And I thought, I can't walk away from a child with that name. So I had a conversation with my husband about adoption, and he had been very anxious about the idea, partly because he already had an existing family, but partly also because, as Sihle mentioned earlier, he was deeply fearful that he might not be able to love an adopted child in the same way that he loved his biological children. And he is a fabulous dad. So I always said to him, if that is your fear, then you need to work through it, because this little girl needs a daddy who adores her more than anything in the world. So I went and chatted to him about it and said to him, look, I'd like to pursue adoption. And he went away and he thought about it and he prayed about it, and he came back a completely changed man. He was broken. And he said to me, if this is what we're going to do, I'm pursuing it with my whole heart.
Okay.
So that was our process.
And there you were. So how then do you, in that process of adoption, you then become this maverick and this person who's writing articles about it.
Yeah.
In simple terms, what is your standpoint on it, on child abandonment?
Well, I think before I get there, I think just to say that that was never my intention. I was never intending to be a maverick. I just wanted to be a mom.
Okay.
And when we met Asha, it was so much that she had always been meant to be part of our family. That's the only way I can describe it. And I had that sense of, here is a little life who had been added to us in a way that she has experienced pain and she has experienced loss, but she blesses us in a way that I cannot explain. And so, being a communicator and an educator at heart, I felt like I wanted to share that journey with other people. So initially what I did was I just started to write about the how-tos of adoption, getting people through the process, understanding the screening, understanding some of the challenges, doing it that way. But the more I investigated, the more I got into realizing that we have a huge child protection problem in this country.
We do.
And I felt like somebody needed to say it.
Yeah.
And somebody needed to write about it. And abandonment, unfortunately, is one of our huge crises. And it feeds right into adoption, because the majority of the children who are on our register for adoption are actually abandoned children, and not children who've been placed consensually by their mothers.
Okay, so, I would not say you had to convince your husband, but it was a conversation that you had. But I mean, I feel there is a majority of able and not entirely willing adults in this country who should be adopting, right? So what's that first step in easing my anxious side to adoption?
Well, I think it's good to be part of a community that is involved in adoption.
Okay.
It's good to hear the voices. It's wonderful to hear from birth mothers. It's wonderful to hear from adult adoptees and to hear from other adoptive parents who've gone through the journey and to realize that this is not a success-only journey. We recognize that there are huge challenges, especially for transracial adoptive families. It's not something that I handle lightly or that I would encourage somebody to go in intentionally because you need to be aware that this is something that you need to engage with a lot. But the fact is, when you start to expose yourself to some of the stories, to some of the families, there are so many wonderful, wonderful, rich, beautiful journeys. And I think that actually it opens up a lot of people's hearts to the possibility. And my husband now is a staunch advocate because, I mean, when he picked up my daughter for the first time, I could see his face. The photographs are all of her. He melted in a puddle on the floor because he loved her instantly. And it's a precious, precious gift that our family's been given.
And you are a precious, precious person. Thank you so much for your time. We'll look out for your next article in Daily Maverick, Mail and Garden, wherever you may be writing. We want to follow your thoughts in this entire process. Thank you so much to all our guests. Tomorrow, Jonathan Rocksmith and Emma Kingston join us to talk about the hit musical Don't Cry For Me, Argentina. Okay, Evita, I'm not going to sing. They'll do it tomorrow. Also joining us, the Mr. South Africa finalists will be here. For myself and the Real Talk team, I think this has been a wonderful hour. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Goodbye.